All right, folks, welcome I'm really excited about this session here. And this is the fifth of six of our Scrub, which is Sanitation Cleaning Resources for Your Business, our best acronym ever. And this session's on employee management and empowerment. And if you haven't been to one of these sessions before, it's an hour and a half. Definitely stay on mute unless you're talking. So we keep the noise out, but keep your video on at least for the first session, the first section here. And basically my name's Hans Estrin. I'll introduce myself in a minute, but we're gonna start with you guys. And while you're here, what brings you here? What's on your mind? What's your issue? And then we're gonna get into, we got three growers that are experienced, awesome growers that have great crews, and I've been, on all their farms, and they're going to take about 10 minutes each to show and tell some of their key lessons learned, and then we're going to move to Ellen from Plant to Profit, who has had decades of experience and is really interested in crew stuff, and she's coming from down in one of the Carolinas, she'll tell you, but to go over some key nuggets that she's gleaned over the years, and then question and answer and project follow-up, because this is an unusual project. So it's not just this isn't just a one-off right now. This is the start of a relationship where we'll follow up and make sure that you get something out of this that's meaningful to you. So I'll just really quick. Scrub is a multi-state project funded by the USDA FSOP, which is Food Safety Outreach Program. It's a 3-year project, and we've got a team, a great team. You'll meet some of them here in the introductions. And basically what we're doing here is that we have a trifold strategy. We're starting with you and your nagging issues and bottlenecks, and we're kind of working backwards with some hybrid resources that might be really helpful, these workshops like today, and then follow-up technical support to make sure that you actually are able to apply something that you've learned to make your life better. In 3 years, we're going to try to hit about 375 growers and really work with them one-on-one to improve their practices. And food safety is kind of where this is coming from. However, it's really important to understand that we are really starting from where you are, and our focus is on bottlenecks that are increase your risk and decrease your efficiency overall, and give you just a pain in the butt and a headache, and kind of planning and implementing solutions. So this is really about making the plan to run a smooth, clean production and make your life more manageable, more meaningful, make your job better. So that's kind of where we go. We fit the produce safety and the risk stuff into that picture. And of course, employees that we're focused on tonight are everywhere on your farm, from the fields to harvest, storage, wash, pack, and out through transport, to the customer. So it's really one of the most important topics, I think, and has had very little attention. So I think we're really in a good position to actually treat this and come up with good resources and really dig into some of this stuff. It's going to make, I think, a huge improvement for a lot of people. So, oops, now I got to back up. There we go. So I'll stop sharing here, and we're going to start with you folks. So we'll just go around, and again, say your name, where you're coming from, town, state. State's important because we got people from all over the country here. I mean, many from the Northeast, but there's a variety. And then the most important thing is actually why you're here. What's your headline from your farm? Any nagging issue? Hope? Why'd you show up tonight? What are you hoping to do? Just really briefly. That will set the stage, and then we'll jump right into the presentations. Without further ado, let's do it. The introductions, some of them will be super short because they're from our team. Some of our team is listening in. And then if you're a grower or even a panelist, just take a little bit longer to, just say what you're doing, why you showed up tonight, like whether I twisted your arm or there's actually a reason. So I'm going to just go right from the top over. So a couple of our team members first. We got Billy in my upper left. So Billy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Hans. My name's Billy Mitchell. I work at the National Farmers Union Local Food Safety Collaborative. They're based out of DC and I live in Georgia. And I'm here today because I do ag education. And when I think of the best qualities that make an educator, those are the best qualities that make a farm manager. Make me think of folks like Julie Asherman and Joe Reynolds. And I'll pass the mic over to Phil Toko.
Thanks, Billy. I'm Phil Toko. I'm with Michigan State University Extension. I'm an extension educator here. I'm based in Jackson County, but cover the entire state. So South Central Michigan is where I live and start work and cover the entire state. The reason I'm here is because the best teachers that I have had throughout my career have been farmers. And with respect to every one of these, I've walked away with at least a page of notes from the farmers that have talked. So I've learned an awful lot. So that's why I'm here. Let's toss it over to Tricia.
I will say Billy and Phil have both run workshops as well. One of these workshops. So Tricia.
Thanks, Phil and Hans. So I am Tricia Wanko. I'm also with National Farmers Union Local Food Safety Collaborative. I do a lot of behind the scenes work supporting a lot of the food safety grants. I've managed a lot of food and farm businesses. So I will second what Billy and Phil said, that it's just an important skill set. So thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ellen Polishuk. I'm live outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. I farmed most of my life in Northern Virginia. And I now am a teacher and consultant with farmers. And I'm here because I was invited. And I'm really here because I care a lot about farmers succeeding. And my observation is that labor relations is often the underlooked issue that's keeping farms from really finding the success they're looking for. I'm going to give the mic back to Hans and let him do the passing.
Okay, let's go to Lisa, who's one of our panelists in my upper right.
Hi, I'm Lisa McDougall. I run a Mighty Food Farm, Shaftesbury, Vermont. I'm presenting today, and I think that employee management is the key to any successful farm. And Hans is right that there hasn't been enough on this subject, and it's super important. So I'm excited to be here tonight, and thanks for inviting me, Hans.
Thank you for being willing. And Lisa's also she's about to end her second term, I think, as president of the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association. I'll just say that.
Yes, hello. I'm Clay Brady. My wife, Paula Marcinek, and I run Foster Brady Farm in the Athens area of Georgia, so in northeast Georgia. We are really trying to just get into any meeting or group of people we can to talk about all aspects of farming, to learn all that we can. We've been in business for about 10 years now, and labor in this area has always been tricky. It's a very transient town. So right now you talked about labor nagging issues. My current part-time worker is on tour with his band, and he should be in the Idaho area right now. So if anybody's into some punk music, I think the band, just to give him a shout out, is Vision Video. So that's the name of the game on the farm right now, is tour calls. So, you know, sweet potatoes be damned.
Wow. I haven't heard that one yet, but it's a good excuse. Oh, that's great.
Hi, my name is Jeff Anthony. Our farm is in Stockbridge, Georgia, Pinewood Springs Farm. The reason I'm here is employee retention. We've only had employees on and off for the past 2 years, and trying to learn as much as I can.
Good reason to be here.
Hi, I'm Lisa McCusker. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm at Rocksteady Farm in Millerton, New York. And I'm here because I am the wash pack manager, which is a new role for myself this year and also for the farm. And so I'm looking to gain skill and kind of acquiring the processes at the same time that you're trying to give instruction, and kind of I'm putting myself in the role of WashPack a lot, and then I'm not able to observe how the other people maybe are doing it, and then not having time to then take notes about what really needs to be happening. And so I'm just here looking to learn from all of y'all and your management styles. Thank you.
Great, Lisa. And just so you know, I dropped the planning template, if you hadn't downloaded it already, into the chat box, just to have a look at. And yeah, I mean, every single one of you should be reflecting on your situation, and you're going to glean some stuff from this, and, you know, write down some stuff you want to do. And, you know, you can email that to me in the next week or two, and I'll bug you about it, and we'll follow up and just see how it goes in a couple months. If you made a plan, or what are you going to do, that kind of thing. Okay, super embarrassing now. I'm I have Gabby, Old Road Farm, but I'm forgetting your name, and it's like awful because I know your name. So you better help me out here.
It's Henry.
Thank you, Henry.
I'm not Gabby. He's at CSA pickup right now.
Yeah.
I forgive you, Hans. It's all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, see, employees this year have been kind of a challenge. We really scaled up a lot and went from one full-time employee to like 3-ish, made up of a bunch of part-time employees and a couple full-time, and figuring it out throughout the season. And I think the biggest thing this year for us was that I have an off-farm job, so Gabby ends up being the one doing a lot of the managing, and she can't be in 3 places at once. She can't be in the wash pack, and she can't be out in the field, like making sure people are staying on task. And the person we had hired back this year to kind of take on a little bit of that role really did not want to take on that role, which was a challenge. And yeah, Gabby's just feeling pretty burnt out with trying to be in 2 or 3 places at once. And I think what we need to do is figure out how to empower employees to start to take on not even necessarily a management role, but just like keeping a pace up if they're working by themselves, or being able to, you know, ask questions if something comes up, instead of kind of just not thinking about the bigger picture of anything.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Thank you for that little picture. Raise your hand if you're in the same boat. I'm just like, I bet there's a few hands out there. So thank you for articulating that so clearly. Valerie, you're next.
Hi, my name is Valerie. My partner Eli is here also. He just had to take the dog outside for a moment. We are at Honeyfield Farm in Norwich, Vermont, and we're a veggie and bedding plant flower farm. We are in our 2nd year here at our new location, and went from having 0 employees for our first 5 years to 10 employees starting last year. And this year, that's about half full-time and half part-time. And so definitely resonate with what a lot of folks are saying, especially what Henry was just talking about. We had written down, like, 1, how to retain employees, and 2, how to keep a positive atmosphere while maintaining quality and pace standards. We were in a similar situation of having someone, you know, having someone in a leadership position who wound up really needing to take a huge step back. And Eli and I also found that we have been, like, basically pulled into the field and wash station to ensure that things are happening at, you know, a reasonable speed and quality standards that we need. But then our office and planning time goes out the window, or is happening at like 10 to midnight. which doesn't feel sustainable. So that's we're looking for some guidance on like how to create systems that new people can come into probably each season, and hopefully we have a handful of employees that are coming back next year, but recognize the transient kind of nature of the work. So we're looking for systems that people can plug into easily, and make our expectations clearer and more easy to understand.
Wow. Thanks, Valerie. This is Rich. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. So I know there's some good stuff coming, and I want to hear more people. And we're gonna go over to Vern because he's next on my list, and Vern's one of the reasons we're all here.
Yeah, I have some pretty unruly employees like Hans, so I need help, man. It's difficult. No, Hans is great. And I'm the primary paper pusher on this project, so I need to stay in touch with what's actually going on since I don't have the knowledge to deliver. But I love sessions like this where I get to learn from farmers and my colleagues in Extension. It's great to hear the issues, and a few things do come up for me. So you talk and I'll pipe in here and there. I mean, one thing I did wonder, how many of your farms have an employee handbook? Just raise your hand, I'd be curious. That is sort of fits in with this too, and there's some good templates out there for that, but I'll stop at that.
Great, thanks, Vern. Taylor and Jake, see you there. Maybe Theo's gonna show up too, we don't know.
Yeah, my computer keeps saying, if you'd like to unmute, do this, because he's just yelling at all of you.
You thought it was good content too.
We are Taylor and Jake, and we run Footprint Farm in Starksboro, Vermont. I'm presenting, so you'll hear more about what we've been doing, but I would say our current two issues. One is we've had a lot of miscommunication and differing use than we anticipated of our time off policy. So we're working on redoing that in a way that feels good for next year. And we also have been used to working alongside our crew pretty much all the time, but we had this, and no childcare. Just a little bit of help. And so learning how to do a lot more managing and not doing it while alongside people.
Thanks. Raise your hand if you've had this before in your lives, a kid or two. And you all know the pressure and what that does, and all the beautiful things too, obviously. James and Sarah.
Hello, I'm James.
I'm Sarah.
We have Trillium Hill Farm in Heinsberg, Vermont. And this is Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
I have a tendency to want to do everything myself and have it done just so. And we're gradually getting, very gradually getting bigger and more employees, and seems like it's maybe time to have someone else helping manage some employees. So that's why we're here.
Great. Ruby's at the top of the list of potential candidates. Could be. All right, thanks. And let's go to Jake, who's also a panelist.
Howdy, Jake Kornfeld, he, him pronouns. I manage the farm at the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps in Richmond. Diversified organic veggies and some pastured poultry, and mostly working with a lot of young people. So definitely resonate with the issues that are being shared, but almost on a comical scale. We hire between 40 and 60 young people every year to work on the farm, and they do all the farm work. So a lot of my world is figuring out how to communicate quality expectations and pace and all that jazz. Definitely have not got it all figured out, but it is a challenging and often rewarding job. And looking forward to hearing more from you all about what the issues are on farms of different scales.
Thanks, Jake. And I worked with Vermont Youth Conservation Corps and have a special fondness for some of their systems and background, and worked with them for a while. And so Jake was an obvious choice as some diversity to talk about kind of a fairly well-oiled machine in terms of where they've come from over the past few decades, actually. Okay, Danny, it looks like we've got you. And then one more, Brian is the last, and then we'll jump right in. The panelists.
Hi, my name is Danny. I use they, them pronouns, and I am part of Common Ground Farm Collective. We're a new project. So we're breaking ground like November 1st, and we will have employees in the future. So just trying to get a head start on how to tackle that, and also that we are operating like as a cooperative. So I think some of the stuff I'll learn today will apply to just empowering each other even before we have employees. So thanks.
Thanks, Danny. And Brian, do you have a video that you could turn on? Awesome. And I just saw Brian today, was at his farm. So
good to see you, Hans. I'm Brian Morgan. I am managing the veg at Philo Ridge Farm in Charlotte, Vermont. We have just 4 of us, so pretty small crew. And I'm just getting to the end of my first season managing that crew. So here to kind of generally learn and hopefully eventually contribute to this whole discussion. But I think mainly thinking about retention and growth for individuals. You know, we'll probably keep a small team, and just thinking about how that'll evolve over the years as we try to build a little bit more of a program and all the value that comes with having continuity and having people sort of build year after year.
great. Thank you so much, Brian. Without further ado, let's jump in, and we're going to start with Taylor at Footprint Farm. And just so, you know, really quickly, the scheme here is I kind of asked these folks and asked a couple more too, but ended up with these folks because when I visit a lot of farms and I get sort of energy vibrations, if you will, from the crew, you know, sort of, and these folks really have done an amazing job, and I'm sure they are, you know, it's a work in progress, but that's sort of the reason is that I've gotten the feeling from these crews that something's going right here. And what is it? What's been going on? And that's what we can glean, and some specific things, but also the general approach, style, what intention. So look at that as we're going through these, and about 10 minutes for each farm. And we're going to start with this Footprint Farm, smaller farm. We're going to grow in size with Mighty Food Farm, and then we're going to go to Youth Corps, Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, which is also about as big as Mighty Food in terms of acreage, I think, but many more employees with a sort of longer system of development in terms of SOPs, management stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taylor and have you tell us some of your stuff.
All right. Thanks, Hans.
And Jake too, I guess, if you're there.
Yeah, they're on bedtime duty. But that's so nice to hear about the good crew vibes, because I think that is really one of our major goals with our business, is to create that vibe so that we can have retention. I really think that profitability is linked to both customer retention and employee retention. So it's something that we think a ton about. And I emailed Hans before this and was like, I looked at everyone else's slides and mine are full of words and everybody else's are just pictures, and what a disaster. I'm so embarrassed. But I think it's good. It's a really good showing of where we're at right now, because I'm just a word dumper, and I learn from reading and writing. And so I want to always, oh, we're teaching a new employee how to do something. Here's an SOP, here's a written checklist of how to do it. And what I've learned over time is that that is not how a lot of people work, especially the people who maybe are attracted to working outside with their hands. And I also have mom brain like really intensely, so I'm probably gonna jump around. Sorry, hon, if I make you go backwards, but
It's all right. Just
these are
tell
all my
me.
thoughts. Yeah, exactly.
Tell me when to switch.
So like Hans said, we're super small. We're just 1.5 acres in outdoor production and about 1/4 acre in high tunnels. This is our main building. So we do year-round production on that scale. It's mostly sold to a April through December CSA program. Since the pandemic, we became about 80% of our business probably is through the CSA, and we have about 180 families at a time in the CSA program, and then the rest of our business is made up by wholesale customers. And like I said, we really focus a lot on our employees. And one of the main reasons is because we've seen that most of the improvements that we've had in our business were employees' ideas, because they're spending so much time doing the actual work. So we've tried to cultivate this feeling of buy-in. So I'm really trying to have it be their farm and their crew and their customers, and trying to have them participate in as many parts of the farm as possible. We start with so these are just some numbers. I won't go into them, but people are often interested. We this year have 4 employees. 1 is part-time and 3 were full-time until recently. 1 just went back to school part-time. And then Jake is full-time plus, and I'm whatever I am this year. But really, I think we need about 4 full-time equivalents plus the 2 of us to run our business. Okay, so again, lots of words, but I wanted to start with our our hiring philosophy, because I think hiring a good person is really a good fit type of person is the foundation of creating that ideal employee who's going to stick around for a while. And so we have this 1,200 hour rule. When we first hired our first employee, she was going to be part-time. And we said, okay, of the 3 people who applied, who do we want to spend 600 hours with? And she had 0 farming experience. And that's how we hired. And that's how we've hired ever since. We do want more experience for certain jobs if we're hiring specifically, but we really try to hire people who are going to enjoy being here, who are going to enjoy working with the other people who are working here. And we want them to thrive in this environment. So when we're doing that interview process, there are some terms that we look for, some positive as far as working here and some not. So my number one, if I see hands, I can't wait to get my hands in the dirt in a cover letter. We usually don't interview that person. Something about those personalities don't thrive in the type of farm that we have. I think that's the more like, oh, I just want to get my hands dirty and like experience nature. And they're just not going to like how nitpicky we are. The other terms we'll look for is if they use any like really specific terminology about ways of farming, like permaculture. We won't typically hire somebody like that if that's what they're looking for. If they're looking for a permaculture farm, we're not a permaculture farm. So really knowing who we are and who we aren't is really helpful in hiring. Some of the more positive words that we look for are a lot of times if somebody wants to have a woman boss, that is a helpful characteristic. If they're looking to learn about being a profitable farm, if they enjoy being small scale, if they want to have a lot of diverse tasks, those are all things that play into our culture here. We also kind of look for people, we try to create this like team environment. So we always ask people, did they play sports? Were they a server in a restaurant? Do they like backpacking? Like different things that aren't farming that could set them up for farming success. And we're also super competitive here. So not that they have to be competitive, but I found that some people are really turned off by competitive people. And so those people aren't going to enjoy working here quite as much as others might. So then once they are here in their first year, we really try to teach them what to do. So be really specific about how to do things the way that we want them to do it. And we usually do that in this 2-week trial period where they're paid a little bit less. They have a checklist that they go through to make sure they learn very specific things. And then after that, we try to teach them how to do it. So we really want them to get indoctrinated with our philosophies of how we farm, how we make decisions, so that they can hopefully by about September, they could go out, see something happening on the farm and be able to say, okay, what would we do on this farm to solve this problem? And they can answer that problem on their own. I want to show a couple of examples of me being too wordy and it being the wrong approach. So Jake is also really good at numbers. So we were doing all of our transplanting with a measuring tape and like, oh, we're doing 8-inch planting, 8-inch spacing, 4 rows. Here's a measuring tape, go. And people just couldn't handle it. So like, buy a dippler was our answer because there you go. Okay, next slide.
That's awesome.
Some other challenges that we've had are listed there, but I won't dwell on them. I will say that the couple of things that we have learned so hard over and over again are clear is kind. So we go into a relationship with an employee assuming that they want to do a good job. And if they don't do a good job, we assume that it's our fault. And we ask ourselves why as many times as we can to figure out what did we do wrong. And maybe sometimes it's that we hired the wrong person, but usually it's because we weren't really clear on what we wanted out of a certain task. So clear is kind is something we live by. Intent, impact, and instead, I don't know, maybe this is from somebody who I met through Ellen and maybe she'll talk about it. And I'm going up against my time, so I won't talk about it. But assuming that people intend to do the right thing, even though the impact is maybe not what we wanted. Okay, you can go to the next one.
And anything you hear here that you want to hear more, just let me know and I'll figure out a way to fill you in or connect in some way.
So this one I might skip entirely, but I will say our employee retention has been awesome. We have people who've been here for 5 years of the 6 years we've had employees. The next one. Oh, so you can skip these too. Okay, and so the other thing I mentioned is that we do most of our improvements on the farm based on employee frustration. So we have a place on our main whiteboard where people, anytime they're frustrated with anything, I encourage them to either come straight to me with that frustration or to add it to the board. So you can see this is our first employee on the left, and that's awful. That cleaning situation, it's hard on your back. It's like not food safe. It was not a good situation. And throughout the years, through employee suggestions, we've come up with what's now on the right for our wash pack station is a pretty clear example of how employee buy-in has improved our systems. And then this is our scrub project that we're working on with Hans. So when I was involved more in the day-to-day, I did a lot of the cleaning in the wash pack, and I have in my head, these are all the things that need to happen. And it wasn't happening this year because the employee who did this with me isn't working for us this year. And so this was my solution. There's a really awesome book called Work Clean, which is about taking mise en place, like French cooking term set in place, taking that kitchen idea into the workplace. And so this is one example of a morning mise. So setting yourself up for success. We spend like 15 minutes getting ready for the day. And then there's a PM mise of getting us reset for the next day. And that is my 10 minutes.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Taylor. And is this, so when when a task is finished, one of the little orange things goes in the box? Is that how it's worked?
Yeah, there's big power in checking off something on a list. So they like that.
Clear is clean. That's right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of stuff here, and we'll have time for questions as well. But let's move along to a slightly larger farm, but kind of and different feel, but amazing farm. And Lisa is here, and she's going to give a little overview of some of her 15 years in business, some of the things she's learned with her crew. So Lisa, take it away and tell me when to switch slides.
Okay. Thank you, Hans. And Taylor, I looked at your slides and I was like, Taylor has words. I don't. I just have pictures that Hans put together. So we were both on the same page. So it's cool, you know. It's what we do is compare, right? All right. So as Hans said, I'm just a little bit bigger. This year we have about 16 acres of vegetables. We do a CSA, about 250 members, wholesale, and just one farmer's market. My crew is about 10 people. We're located in Shaftesbury, Vermont. Just a brief history of sort of where I've come from. I had leased a farm for 10 years down in Pownell, Vermont from 2007 to 2016. Started off at around 4 acres, bumped up to 10 acres, and then in about 2013 to 15, 16, I was doing upwards of 22 to 24 acres of production with a crew of 14, and we had a CSA outside of New York City and doing deliveries outside of New York City, and just did a lot. And then I sort of was able to buy a farm with the help of the Vermont Land Trust. So I moved and sort of like reset and sort of found this sweet spot of around 15 or 16 acres, and still actually trying to grow less but make the same amount of money is what I'm working on. For my crew, just like some basic stats, they are working 5 days a week, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. They get a 15-minute paid morning break, a 30-minute paid lunch. So they're there for 8 hours a day, working for 7.25 hours. I don't ask anybody to work overtime or work on weekends, ever really. I start folks at $13 an hour. Everybody gets a $1 per hour annual raise, if not more, based on performance or whatever. My longest employee has been with me for 13 years. Underneath that is 8, and then 4 years, and then, you know, those are sort of like my core group, and then I have a turnover of seasonal folks. So in terms of like how the daily grind goes on the farm, I'm with the crew all the time. I'm sort of running the field crew. I'm there harvesting and washing, or harvesting and planting and weeding with them. I have a full-time tractor driver, mechanic, and so I also work sort of individually with him, and I'm fortunate enough to have a really skilled individual doing wash pack with a really great, super high standard for quality control. So when I'm with the crew, you know, I kind of am just naturally always like explaining like why we're doing it, like why we're choosing to weed the carrots now instead of tomorrow, and what the importance of it. And whatever I'm doing with the crew, I'm always letting them know like how important it is, and how all the things that we do all day are important. Like we all know like the domino effect of like from seeding trays to bed prep to cultivation to harvest to wash to pack. Like I'm always saying like it all matters, it's all important, but also like if you fuck up, it's like not a big deal. That's a nice picture of the wash pack team, you know, doing their thing. They're amazing. They're really great. I kind of am hands off in there, but do stick my head in there and sort of am kind of daily, like checking over things and checking in with people. For sure. I'm a pretty big presence in all aspects of the farm. So just a few more things about sort of what I do for crew. We do have like a temperature regulated break room. It's AC in the summer, heated in the winter. Everybody gets a CSA share. They get a gear stipend, $150 in the spring, $150 in the fall. Everybody gets rain gear. These are all things that probably a lot of you are doing, but I'm just going to list them off. We also do tons of snack. The snack shelf is a little empty in that photo. That's a break room. We do lots of snacks, all the granolas and all the things that people want to eat. The snack shelf is a real big hit. If you don't supply snacks, that's a really good first step. And then let's see, for communication throughout the season, I have quarterly check-ins with people. Every quarterly is 3 months. So it's sort of like a one-on-one sit down. Hey, how's it going? Like, you know, is there anything you need to talk about or whatever? And those are always really helpful. I always get kind of nervous about them, you know, but they always are super great. We also do end of the season reviews where, again, I have like a printout of like, what do you think went well this season? What needs improvement? And I have a one-on-one with people. I write all the notes down. I come up with a big master spreadsheet or whatever of successes and failures, basically, if you want to label them like that. And then we make follow-throughs and action plans. And then in the spring, we have a preseason meeting, generally in March, around the first week of March, where this year it was Zoom, but usually we get together and we go over those one-on-ones, those end of season follow-throughs and what needs improvement, and we make action plans, and that's been super helpful. And it's a really great way to bring the crew into production and they get really excited. I also do game plans every day for the crew. Here's like a shot of a game plan. I don't know, you can't see it really, but this is a piece of paper with all the tasks. It's cool. We don't need to see all of it. I can explain it.
Okay, and you can
Sure,
share your
you can
screen.
like.
I can spotlight you. Hold
I don't
on.
know how to do that.
I can do it. Hold on.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like not that important, but it can be. So it's just like a piece of paper, and on it has like, you can stop screen sharing. It's like kind of like blurry. So it's just like, I mean, on it has like my field. I have my crew broken down into wash pack team and field crew. Wash pack team is like 3 people. Field crew is 7 people. So wash pack is wash and pack 5 days a week, 40 hours. And then field crew is field crew, 40 hours each person. So it's just a list of the projects of what everybody's doing for the day. And so everybody knows what everybody else is doing. So I do those the night before, and everybody gets a printout. They put it in their pocket. It's very detailed and is a real win. People really like the game plans to reference. They're always whipping them out. And then I also, every Sunday night, I email the crew we have our biggest wash pack day is Monday, lots of wholesale and a big CSA thing, you know, harvesting wash. So I email them all that information, and then we have a weekly list. And so I pretty much almost have Monday through Friday planned out of what we're going to be doing when, always subject to change, but you know, it's pretty spot on. It helps them to know. They like to know what's going on. People like to know what they're going to be doing. They want to know how to dress. They want to know if it's going to be a big day or like a smaller day or whatever, you know. People want to know what is going on. We have morning meetings every meeting, wash, pack, field crew, tractor driver, everybody's there. We go over the game plan. We also have weekly meetings every Thursday after lunch. At the weekly meetings, we do a go around of what we're going to be doing next week. There's like, we have line items, we have greenhouse work, weeding, transplanting, wholesale items, maintenance, tractor work, you know, whatever, post-harvest handling. And we go through and everybody just sort of like shouts out around the room. A lot of it's me talking. And people are saying, you know, we got to weed the carrots and we got to stake the cherry tomatoes, and, you know, and that's super fun. We also, when all the full crew is in for the season, we do show and tell at the weekly meetings. So that's exactly what you think it is. People bring in like, I don't know, their old ballet shoes or like a piece of artwork. And like, it's like a time for us to like hang out for like 15 minutes and like learn more about somebody. And it's super fun. And we all participate, and show and tell is just great. We all look forward to it. And then also, just like for onboarding and training, just making sure that like everybody knows like who's who, like who's the managers of what and how long have people been here. That's just like a basic thing for introductions. We do have an employee handbook. It's probably 30 pages. Laid out expectations, rules, wages. I have everything from like vacation time, smoking policy, drug policy, to like you don't sit on your butt in the field, like that's in the handbook. Really important to have that, and everybody, I read it out loud to everybody so everybody knows the deal once we're like full staff, you know, around like late May. Okay, I'll try to like go quicker. I don't know how much time I have. One of our, so like we have in sort of like our farm vibe is, I mean, I like to say that we're a love-based business. And so one of our mantras on the farm is, what is my most loving reaction to this situation right now? And so whether that's like dealing with like somebody who's like kill bunches or like too big or whatever, it's just like treating everything like taking a step back and like thinking about like how am I going to react to this situation, and like and again, like Taylor had said, assuming that people have the best intentions, you know, and like if somebody messes up, I'm like, okay, that's great, well, like try again tomorrow, or like that's fine that you did it that way, it's like not gonna like hurt anything, you know. I really don't, I think I used to get mad at employees or like get like upset when somebody messed up, and I don't anymore, because it, you know, unless it's like a real safety thing, like with the tractor or whatever, it's really, as Taylor said, like what did I do, and how can I better communicate? Let's see, just like some takeaways that, or actually one thing that I'll touch on before, like some takeaways and just like little tidbits that I have written down is, I started working with a business coach a couple years ago. He specifically works with the entrepreneurial operating systems. That's a book, EOS by Gina Wickman, EOSworldwide.com. It's a management system. Super helpful. I think there's lots of great management books out there. The other one that's really helpful, and I know that like, you know, books are great. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey is super awesome if you want to get into that. I don't like read that much, but I like read management books. So let's see. I've definitely had my fair share of really bad employee situations, from eviction and on-site drug use and like emotional abuse and like mental health stuff, like all of it. And like, that's like going to happen. Like, and it's an experience, and it's just like in the moment, it is like awful, and like do your best to like remain present and like just react the best you can to this situation. But like, you know, challenges will happen, and it's just a learning experience, and then like you will come out on the other side okay, and like everything will be okay. So another thing is that like your farm is not your employee's life. Nobody will ever care about your farm as much as you do, so don't expect that ever. I'm not saying you do, but it's just like, it's like I sometimes found that like, you know, people, I find they want to be at the farm for 40 hours a week, and then they want to go home, and I'm like totally cool with that. And I, you know, if people want time off, you give them time off whenever they want it, within reason. And I think that, and it is hard, like in the busy season, to take care of yourself. You know, we were all working hard, we were working late, COVID has been stressful. But like really, I know like the self-care thing is like this hot topic and whatever, but like doing your best to take care of yourself in some sort of way so that you can be your best boss. So whatever that is for you. And also, you really need to, I think, I'm not telling you what to do, but you really need to like love your business and love your farm and what you're doing. And if there's aspects of your farm that you don't love, then you need to change them or get rid of them. If you don't like, if you're not in love with like most of the aspects of your farm, it's going to be really hard for other people to love it. There's like annoying things like thinning fall carrots like for hours on end. There's like things that you have to do, you know, chopping wood and carrying water. But creating a business that you love, I also think is like really important. And through working with the business coach, that was like really helpful for me. Experience is the most valuable teacher. So I've had a lot of bad experiences and continue to, but I also have a lot of good ones. So that's it.
Wow.
Thanks, Hans.
Thank you, Lisa. That was a whirlwind, just packed with like we could spend weeks the stuff you just said. So and Taylor too, and I'm sure Jake. So there's a lot. This is really rich, folks, and you know, I feel like we could easily take 2 hours here and still feel rushed to jump into some of this stuff. So a lot of really important things that you said. And if something caught your eye, folks are listening and you didn't hear enough, or you want to know more, again, just follow up with me afterwards. That's what I'm here for. And I can get you more information based on your needs or questions. So Lisa, thank you so much for that. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over here. We're going to pop up to the north central part of the state in Richmond, Vermont, with the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps farm along Route 2 and I-89 corridor, and smack in the middle of the Green Mountains. So Jake, if you want to take it away, that'd be great.
Sure thing. Hey, everybody. I'll just start yammering and I'll let Hans figure out
I will.
Background imagery. So the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, my title is the Farm Production Manager. So I think maybe the first thing to name is that we're a nonprofit. So some of this is just a completely different context than what you all experience on farms where your bottom line is your bottom line. And we exist primarily as a youth development organization. So sort of the first and foremost thing we're thinking about is how do we engage young people in working on the land with one another on important projects that benefit the community. So in order to do that, we're hiring young people who are aged 15 to this year 27, and they come for varying amounts of time. They're all paid, they're all doing work on the farm. We do, give them genuine responsibility, and we rely on them to operate a, 11-acre production organic farm. We start our season with about 6 folks who come on in March, and then we just keep ramping up and adding more people to the mix and more layers until we top out at between 40 and 45 people coming to the farm to work every day from June through August, and then it wanes throughout the fall. And right now, I'm actually just wrapping up our crew leader celebration where I destroyed everyone in ping pong. And we said thank you and farewell to our 5 crew leaders, and that leaves us with a crew of 9 for the rest of the fall. So we grow on 11 acres for a CSA of 400 members that we call the Healthcare Share. It's a program that provides a weekly share of vegetables to community members who are identified by their healthcare provider as having a diet-related illness or are experiencing food insecurity. And they're basically prescribed a weekly share of vegetables for anywhere from 12 to 20 weeks. And that food is grown by our young people on our farm in Richmond. Let's see. We also raise about 750 broilers every year. that we slaughter on site and have a flock of about 150 layers and are doing 6 pigs this year. So Hans is scrolling through some pictures of the farm.
You can tell me when to switch, Jake, if
Sure.
that's the best. If you want to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, why don't we skip ahead maybe to that 4th slide? Great. So this is our circle up, I think on our opening day in June, and that's just a picture of, how many folks we end up with. So that's about 35 people who are coming to the farm for the first time. And we split them up into crews that are 6 or 7 people, and they're split up based on age. And each crew ends up with 1 crew leader. So this summer, for example, we ran 5 crews who each had a crew leader. And we start pretty much entirely fresh every season. So everyone who is not myself on the farm is new each year. So that means that we are training new tractor operators, we're training a new wash pack person, we're training new greenhouse people, we're training new harvest crews. So everybody starts fresh every year. Some people come to us with a little bit of experience, and we try to hire some of those roles with experience. Our longest running employees each season are from March through November, and we call them the project leads, and those have more specialized roles that require a little bit of experience. So we have 2 production leads that are sort of my assistants. We have a post-harvest and sales lead. We have a community engagement lead who works with volunteers who come to the farm, a food and nourishment lead, and a healthcare share lead. And then there are the crew leaders who are managing the crews. They go through a pretty intensive sort of 3-week-long training in April, where they learn a bit about managing crew dynamics. They learn all of the policies that they'll need to know. They learn, they learn farm skills. So they're out on the farm for half the day each day, and we teach them the basics of transplanting and harvesting, quality control, managing people in the farm context, things like that. Yeah, we also, a major part of this in the last couple of years has been that almost all of these folks are AmeriCorps members, which brings its own interesting dynamics to the labor equation because they're on a stipend rather than just getting an hourly wage. And that has pros and cons, but either way, nobody's really coming to the farm to make the most amount of money that they could make. And that's actually kind of core to our model in terms of retention and engagement. We really focus on and try to take advantage of the fact that people are there because they're interested in working with their peers outside. They're, and when you get to needing the level of efficiency, I think that Taylor needs, having someone say, I want my hands in the dirt is definitely a red flag. When you're at our scale, having someone say, I want my hands in the dirt is actually like a great thing that we're trying to foster and develop. So we focus a lot on people's connection to their food and to their community, and trying to really highlight how can we get people to be engaged in this work for a reason that's not just their paycheck. Because if we were relying only on their paycheck, we would be in trouble. Ideally, we'll keep increasing their pay each year, but we are constrained at this point by how much money the federal government wants to pay AmeriCorps members. So we'll work on that next year. Cool. So I guess on that line of how we engage people, I figured I would break it down in a couple different ways. So one of the things we focus on is how people are connected with the labor that they're offering. So what's actually happening with all of this work and blood and sweat and tears that they're pouring into our fields. And so we look for opportunities to engage all of our employees in the distribution process. So that's a little tricky for us because a lot of our CSA members are sort of shielded from us by HIPAA in that their medical provider doesn't want us to know who they are as individuals. But nonetheless, we try to give core members are what we call our employees. We give our employees the opportunity to pack the weekly shares. So we set up sort of an assembly line style CSA share packing, and each week a different crew is working on it, and they'll go through and they'll pack all the bags, and they'll sort of take a moment to recognize, hey, that's 400 families you're feeding this week. That's 400 families in our case who likely wouldn't have access to fresh produce if we weren't able to get it to their medical provider. So I think we just sort of try to hone in and focus on who the food is going to and how their contributions supported it. So in this example, this youth is Elijah, and Elijah harvested that parsley and is now packing it into the share and feeling proud of sending it off to a family. You can go to the next slide, Hans. So another aspect of that engagement is direct sales. So I think it is abstract to be sending out these CSA shares. It's a lot more tangible to be selling it out of a farm stand and seeing people come to the farm stand. So we operate just a little roadside farm stand that gets a nice amount of traffic right on Route 2. And we try to spin a narrative around this where we remind core members that people are actually interested in spending their hard-earned cash on the veggies that they're growing. And I think that's actually quite a statement. And it's something that, I don't know, I mean, I've been growing veggies for, you know, my whole adult life, and it still is something that brings me a good bit of delight when I see someone come and they actually want to spend $5 on a pint of our cherry tomatoes. And that's money that they earn doing something else. And they think what we're doing is so worthwhile and delicious and good for them that they want to come to us and spend that money. So we let core members stock the farm stand. We let them make decisions about displays. We solicit ideas for ways that we can market things out of the farm stand. So now we do like salsa kits, and we do, you know, like specials on carving pumpkins right now, for example, and things that our members are coming up with. We also try to engage people in that work by getting them to enjoy the food that they grew. So during the heat of the summer, we're providing lunch for everybody every day. From a programmatic standpoint, that also lets us have young people in the kitchen learning some culinary skills. So that's a bonus. And it just makes people connect to that food they're growing and really appreciate that it's delicious and nourishing, and there's a lot that goes into it, and they get to enjoy what comes out of it. And then there's the connection to their crews and each other. So I think this is relevant for any farm crew. I mean, the best part of it is often the people you work with and the connections you get to make. And when you're out weeding on a cold, rainy day, it's nice to take a moment and pause and appreciate the people you're with. We get crushed in the NOFA Farm Olympics. So we have our own Farm Olympics. This is our three-legged sack race. And it's just nice to give folks a little bit of time now and again to just celebrate each other and have a good time. But again, I understand the context is different when you're a nonprofit farm. And then there's this diversity of tasks thing that both Taylor and Lisa touched on. Raising animals, I think, brings its own set of engagements and interests. Learning how to process a chicken and create a whole other set of products is another opportunity. So we have young people processing all the birds on site with us. And I think that's a pretty impressive skill, and it makes a big impact on people and makes them feel like they've really done something to be proud of when we look at the beautiful packaged finished birds. So yeah, 35 people on the farm on any given day, and a pretty diverse set of tasks means that we have to put a lot of energy and focus into how we communicate information. So we have a morning meeting every day where we go through a whiteboard and talk about what needs to be done, everything from chores on down through harvest and wash pack and projects. Just a reminder basically of what people are doing because they should already know. And then at the end of the day, we get a report out and we have a meeting at the end of the day. I wish those were a little more efficient, but people like the touch point of getting to sort of make jokes and sympathize about the day and you know, be proud and share out what they've done. So that's just with our crew leaders and our project leads, but it's a good touch point for me to keep a pace on how everyone's energy is, how people feel about the tasks they're doing, what questions they have. It gives me an opportunity to provide any clarity that wasn't written, and to troubleshoot any last minute gaps that we can identify. So we try to empower the crew leaders and the project leads to say, you know, hey, I see that I'm on this, that, and the other thing. I don't feel like I can get that done this morning. Is anybody able to help me? And then we can sort of barter for our work needs in that last minute. We also do a Friday meeting, a weekly meeting that takes about an hour, which is a pretty significant investment of time, but I think is worth it. And in that meeting, I basically bring everyone what the tasks are for the next week, and I let them, to a certain extent, divvy up how they want to assign those tasks. So I'll say, okay, who wants to harvest kale this week? Who's going to be the squash and cukes person? And that lets people take a little more ownership over the task, feel a little more invested, and relieves me the managerial burden of having to give someone the bad news that they're cleaning out the brooder that week, for example. So I think it fosters a little more buy-in, lets people sort of manage their own time, and build their own skill set based on what they have or have not done in the past.
Hey, Jake, this is super awesome, and we are typically running short of time. So where you can see moments to speed ahead, we're going to need to do that. I'm sorry to say that.
Great. I love giving people written information, but also showing, telling, reiterating over and over again is necessary. So that's what's going on in this slide, round 12 of how to harvest a summer squash. Yeah, I'm on a binge of writing SOPs. So far, we've captured everything in our wash station and our chores, and up next is harvest. So I think more ways you can present people information, the better. Showing, telling, reiterating. It's all part of the game. What's next? Yeah, and then I guess this is the last thing I was going to talk about. Things are just constantly in flux for us, and every season is different. So this was what our weekly board looked like at the beginning of the season, and this is how my brain works by blocks in the field. And the next slide is where we've gotten to now, which is that people prioritize, and that's how they want to think of their work. So rather than thinking of it in terms of a field map, this point in the season, we're thinking of it in terms of priorities. So every season we're adjusting and keeping this fluid and responding to how people's brains work on our crew. I think that is fine for now. Thanks.
Wow. Well, Jake, that's amazing, and what a different universe. I mean, 40 something in your crew leaders, and boy, you have to be super clear, and it looks like you're doing that. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it to Ellen, and I think you're sharing your screen, and I'm looking forward to what you have here. Ellen's going to wrap some things up and share some of her nuggets.
All right. We'll see. I'll go as quick as I can, or skip over some things that have already been mentioned in these amazing 3 sharings that we've had so far. Again, my name is Ellen Polishuk. I farmed at Potomac Vegetable Farms in Northern Virginia, selling all retail into the DC region, farmers market, CSA, and roadside stand. So this is when Hans said, what are we doing here? This is what I'm doing here. I'm here taking a stand for each of you to transform your relationship with the people that you work with, so that it becomes kind of the best part of what you're doing on your farm. Here's some things that we've heard tonight that are complaints. You know, you get farmers together at a conference or so, or having a couple of beers, and what are they going to start to complain about? They're going so slow. Oh, they make the same mistakes. Oh, they didn't last as long on the season as they should have, and nobody's coming back for a second year. So that's a pretty universal complaint, and we heard basically, not complaint, but issue, a problem that's going on, and we heard that in our opening roundtable with each person talking about things happening on their farm. And so, as Taylor very bravely and wisely said, the question is, whose fault is all of that? And this is where we get to that part where, yeah, by definition, when anything goes wrong, it's pretty much your fault. Lisa said the same thing. Here's my favorite grumpy farmer picture for you to enjoy. And so taking ownership of that reality is going to change your stance, and it's going to serve you as you move forward with your farm. The reason why people quit jobs is because they don't like their boss. There's study after study that shows this. So it's not, you know, sometimes in our work as farmers, people quit because they just can't take it, right? They just can't take the physicality of the work. They had no idea what they were really getting into, which means there was something probably wrong in the hiring process. but people quit bosses and not jobs. And so there's a slide I don't have in here, but it's one that I like to put out there because it's annoying and obnoxious and feisty. And sometimes that's my job. And the slide says, it's not your God-given right to be a farmer. You can garden all you want, grow food for you and your family. But when you become a farmer, you're running a business. And a business has economic concerns, and a business has people concerns. And so you cannot ignore one of the key features of your whole operation, which is your labor. So it's up to you to set everybody up for success. This is just another way of saying the same thing, that it's up to you. And this, as we've also heard, folks want to do well, help them do well. And this is one other way to think about it, if this helps you. Have the right decision easy to make. That means things were thought through in advance, well planned, well set up from a logistical and ergonomic standpoint, and so that doing a good job is easy for your employee. So here's, when you think about the pillars of a farm business, there's, your chops in the field. How good are you at growing stuff? Then there's this piece, which farmers, some really hate this part, the business part, the money part, the accounting, bookkeeping, record keeping. And then there's this relationship piece. And again, this is me going back to, it's not your God-given right to have a farm. If you want to have a farm business, somehow you're going to have to cover all these areas. And that's why sometimes it's helpful to have partners, whether you're married to them or not, so that you have different skill sets coming to bear at the top levels of your farm operation. But I would bet, besides Lisa McDougall, by and large, this is the area that you have spent the least amount of time and money studying and practicing. You haven't focused your mind on how to build and maintain healthy, strong relationships with anybody, the people you work with, the people that you sell to, the people that are your service providers that are coming to your farm to help you do your business. And so I would encourage you, just like Lisa did, to read some management books. There's a lot of good books out there. They don't have to have anything to do with farming. They have to do with people. And that's what we're talking about. So stop acting like managing is not a crucial role on your farm. Let's talk just a couple of hints. So somebody was mentioning earlier, changing from a crew of 0 to a crew of 10 over the course of 1 or 2 seasons, which is a tremendous jump in how fast your business is growing. And so what we often forget as farmers is that the act of managing is actually work, and it is a job in and of itself. And so the mistake that most new folks who are new to hiring and new to having teammates is that they don't, in their minds, carve out enough time to spend being the manager. And so they think that they're just going to hire all these people. Those people are going to do all this work, and then I can just do my list. But it doesn't work that way. You have to spend time managing your business from a business perspective and also from a personnel crew perspective. And so you got to get your expectation correct. A lot of this advice comes around expectation management. So what is a manager's number one job? And this may not be the answer that you first came to your mind. You might think, oh, the manager's job is to get the work done in a timely fashion and to, be efficient. But really, what we're growing on our farms are humans. We're growing people. And so our main job is to develop the people that work with us so that they blossom in our system, in our beautiful farm ecosystem that we've created. That may not be what you were thinking of, but I want you to take that on. I want you to try that on as a possibility, as a role that you could play. So what I'm going to try to differentiate a couple of terms, one being manager and one being a leader, because most of us, you know, some of the self-help books and terminology, Oprah and Ellen and, you know, all kinds of important TV personalities are bringing us some of those terms. So here's some activities for a farm manager, and this could be you, or this could be someone that you hire. And they're doing all the things that we've just been looking at on most of the previous slide sets. They're creating work lists, they're creating schedules, they're holding meetings, they're receiving feedback, and they're sort of training and just making sure the work keeps flowing and that obstacles are cleared up. So that's a farm management job. That could be your job, or again, you could be hiring that job out. But then there's this idea of being a leader. What is a leader? And a leader is somebody who's going to make something happen that wasn't going to happen already. A manager is making things happen that we fully expect and need to have happen every day. And a leader is pushing the boundaries and helping new things come about, bigger and better things. So leadership activities on the farm is working with others on visioning, goal setting, and establishing your values. What are the ethics and the values of your farm? A leader is working on the high level business analysis, doing that, you know, who is our customer and how are we reaching them and achieving the business goals of our farm. Business development, and then this last piece here, inspiring and enrolling the team to strive toward a shared mission. You know, this is that pulling us all together. What are we doing here each day? What is our real goal? We're developing ourselves. We're growing beautiful food to feed our friends and neighbors, and touching back as frequently as you need to, and probably more frequently than you're doing. What are we doing here? Why are we working so hard? Why are we putting up with uncomfortable, you know, weather conditions and long hours or early hours or hot or whatever it is? Keep touching back to what's the mission. What are we doing here on this farm? What are we trying to accomplish? So management is about taking care of the now. What are we doing right now? And leadership is about creating a new future. So maybe that's helpful to you, but it's a way that you can either think about putting different hats on your own head or splitting up responsibilities on a farm that has multiple owners or multiple operators working as a team. And then this pulls in another idea that's out there in the in the business development world and the entrepreneurial space, and that is this idea called servant leadership. And it's kind of flipping the whole thing on its head. Instead of saying, I'm going to get some people to work for me, it's saying, I'm going to get some people and my job is really to work for them, to work and make sure that they can do their job, so that you are you're keeping their best interests at heart as they keep your business's best interests at heart. So it's called servant leadership. If you're interested, just put that in the Google, see what comes up. I think we're getting too short on time, so I'm just going to go quick on this one. If you're interested again in diving into kind of some management concepts, Google itself, the company, did a really neat study, and they called it the Project Aristotle. And they were trying to understand why some teams in their corporation were tremendously productive and doing breakthrough work, and why other teams weren't. And the key factor is this thing called psychological safety. This is what they determined made the difference between teams that just sort of plodded along and teams that were breaking through. Psychological safety is that all the teammates know that they are trusted and that their opinions, their feelings, who they are is going to be respected by their teammates. So it's creating this climate of inclusion, of valuing each member of the team, that they can speak freely and not be made fun of. People are tremendously worried and afraid of being shamed or being made fun of. So watch out for that. Psychological safety is what makes a big difference on a team. And it's a hard thing to accomplish in a very quick amount of time. You know, these are ideas that are often used in situations where folks are working for a really long time, right? Year after year after year. But you can take some of this in to your, just like the Youth Conservation Corps, you know, he's only got a certain amount of time to work with these people. And so he's quickly setting up the expectation from those folks that their voices will be heard and that their contributions are valued. Feedback. This is, I imagine a number of you get this magazine, Growing for Market. It's one of my favorites. I've done a little writing from them. And this came out last fall. This is some woman who is working at farms all over the country and writing about her experience. And she's been doing this for years. And she said she's been doing surveys of other people that work on farms. And the #1 complaint of workers on organic farms in the United States of America is they don't get enough feedback. They don't know how they're doing. How's that for interesting? Okay, so let's talk about feedback. Just real quick, because that's what we're on. Feedback needs to be done with certain intention, and your intention is to be clear, to be helpful, to be interactive, going back and forth, that your intention is that this be a positive experience, and that you do it at the right time. The time that you do it and the circumstances in which you do feedback need to be thoughtful, right? You don't want to embarrass anybody. It might need to be something that's done privately. So you can practice doing this. You can get better at doing this. Some other, along the lines of communication, some other things that are helpful, can be helpful for you. And I like these rules. Communication suggestions. Make sure that your priorities are clear for as we've heard from these excellent speakers, what's up for this week? What's up for today? What are we doing right now? Be clear. What is the goal? Speed, number of bunches, row feet, whatever it is. What are we trying to accomplish in this amount of time? People don't want to be set in front of 350-foot long rows and told, you know, just go until forever, right? It's just, it's a soul killer. And then this last piece is part of the feedback loop. It's part of this management of keeping track of how your folks are doing. Make sure that there is an understood method of communication between management, manager, and employee. When are those moments supposed to happen? So that's the rhythm of communication, and that you do what you say you're going to do. We're going to have quarterly one-on-ones. We're going to have bi-weekly check-ins. We're going to have whatever it is. People need to know what to expect. And then, or you could even say, and I have an open door policy on Monday mornings. I'm going to be in the office doing accounting. And if you have something you'd like to speak to me privately about, please come stop in the office. Whatever it is, people need to know what to expect. Just like Lisa said, you can't expect employees to be you or to do the things that you do for as long as you do them, right? One of our fellows in the introduction was talking about maybe he needs to remove himself from management because he's holding the reins too tight. He has a hard time delegating. And this is the key piece, is you really have to change your idea about what amount of work can get done in a certain amount of time, because nobody's going to be as good as you, almost ever. Maybe after 6 or 10 years, somebody who works with you will be as good as you. So it's what the problem is, not them. The problem is your expectation of what someone who is untrained and not bought in is going to be able to accomplish day after day after day throughout a 9 to 12 month season. So that's called getting your mind right. I'm going to skip. This is what people want in exchange for doing good work. And so this is important for you to make sure you attend to. You want the work to be satisfying. You want to appreciate and respect the contributions of each of your folks. And sometimes people want to earn power or authority. They want to so-called move up in the organization. And sometimes what they really want is more money and more time off. So it's important that these are not in any particular order. This is usually how it works, but you need to check in with people because some folks are driven more by one of these things than another. I would say mostly between these two at the bottom. So you need to have communication about what is it going to take for this person to feel like they should keep working here. And many people here have mentioned the word retention. And so you have to be hitting all these marks in order for somebody to want to come back. Why should they keep coming if they're not making progress in satisfaction, respect, power, and remuneration? And that's what we were talking about. You want to keep people around for another season. And so my question is, how much more is a second year worker worth than they were the first year? So really, if you really think about it, I would say that most people are twice as good, almost twice as good the second year than they were the first. But so why are we only giving them $1 raise? That's like less than 10%. That's like 5%, 3% raise from one year to the next. If you want somebody to come back, I would suggest that you offer them a significant pay bump. They're worth it to you compared to training somebody else brand new from scratch. What is that really worth to you? It's worth money. And so I say, put the money on the table. And if you want people to come back and treat this job like it's a career, a real job, well, then just use your mind, right? Think about, what does it really take for an adult person to call this job a career? It has to be a job that has somewhere to go. There's growth possibilities. The wage has to be good enough for them to afford to live in a reasonably comfortable manner in town or somewhere nearby. They want to have some paid vacation. They're going to need health insurance and sick leave. That's what a real job is. So if you want people to come back year after year, you're going to have to figure out the economics of how to make this happen so that you can have real permanent workers, basically like some of the folks that we heard from today. Lisa and Taylor both have very long-standing workers, and that means a bunch of things are growing right on those farms. All right, that was pretty good.
Wow.
Maybe a little long.
No, Ellen, that's fabulous. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. And I just, yeah, I don't know how to thank all of you for all of your participation, the panelists, Ellen, and the participants too, for taking the time to share what was on your mind in the beginning. That was a really important way to start, and it took a little extra time, and it was well worth it. And we're completely out of time and over time. So I want to thank you all for your patience. Let's stick around if anyone wants to say anything optionally or ask some questions. So I'm going to turn it over to anyone and thank everyone who needs to leave.
I have a question for Ellen, Hans, if I could kick it off. So in your point about raises, I think you're absolutely right that they're worth a ton, but say you have somebody who's come back for 10 years, you can't keep going. So like, do you have kind of a hierarchy of what's the next step for come back next year and blank?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a fairly unusual circumstance, right? Because mostly we have problems with turnover. I would say, just like in parenting, when you don't know what the answer is, ask the kid. What should your punishment be? Oh, let them figure it out. It's going to be way worse than you would have done it. So ask the person, what would it take for you to come back another year? What would really just make your heart sing? You know, maybe it's not what you're going to give them, it's what you're going to take away. You're never going to have to go to market again. Or
we did make a deal. We have to get rid of our old Winnebago tool storage.
yeah. So
we're building a tool shed.
They know what they want. Let them tell you what they want or what they need in order for it to somehow fit into their, you know, their more perfect life. That's what I would suggest.
One thing I wanted to say actually to everyone, but a lot of people have left now, you know, being a teacher my whole life and whatnot, is that, you know, the best teachers, I've seen a whole variety of just amazing teachers, and they're all over the map in terms of their style. And what makes them amazing is their authenticity. And that's why they're all over the map, because everyone's different. And so I would just throw that out there, that all these things that you're hearing, you have to figure out who you are and what your strengths are, and know what's important to you, and start there, because that's where that match comes from. I think Taylor, you were talking about that a lot. Like, that's the foundation of being able to actually do all these other things, is to know where you're coming from and know, you know, the style you have. And or at least, I mean, you're changing as a manager all the time, but at least have some soul searching around that, because then that allows you to be wrong. It allows you to have confidence. It allows you to understand how to support your employees, you know, how to interview them, the kinds of questions you want to ask, like what you guys came up with, that kind of stuff. So I can't underestimate how important I think authenticity is, which is going to be different for everyone.
What I'm trying to say when I talk about this, you know, it's not your God-given right to be a farmer, is like, you got to understand your own temperament. And if you're going to suck as a boss, then you should be growing wheat in Kansas and not 1,700 crops in Vermont. You know, you need to pick a kind of farming where you being a curmudgeon is going to work out, but it's not having a farm that requires tons of labor, because you're just going to suck at it, and everybody's going to suffer. You are going to suffer, you will fail, and everyone's going to kind of hate you. I've watched it happen. I've seen people who are tremendous horticulturists, tremendously skilled at growing food, and their farms fail because they suck as managers.
Way to
As
sugarcoat it.
people. Yeah, we're down to the bare bones here, people. And I was so glad Lisa McDougall flipped the F-bomb before I did, so that's good.
I'll throw another question out at Lisa. Who does your weekend work? If no one's working on the weekend, like how are you not burnt out? If you're with your crew and you're writing all those awesome to-do lists for everybody, when are you doing all that? And when do you eat?
All the time. I guess like I'm not married. I don't have children. Those are like two big things, I think. Like I don't have, do you know what I mean? So I guess I just do those things. And I do get burnt out. You know, I don't, Taylor, I don't really have an answer. I guess I sort of like, I used to hate when my parents used to say this to me, but like, you've made your bed, so lie in it. And so sometimes I feel like I've taken on this sort of role, like as a boss and as a manager, and like, this is like what I've chosen to do. And so I think for a long time, I had a really hard time with that. But I've sort of like, it's
You've embraced
just
it.
Like the chores that I do. Yeah, I've embraced it. And again, like I have no family that lives close. I'm just here all the time at the farm. I don't, so I'm a little bit different, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, but still, like,
It's just
specifically with weekend work, are you by yourself, like harvesting zucchini Saturday and Sunday? Or do you like, it's not worth it, I'm going to let that go? Or
yeah, no, we do what we call Friday smalls.
Okay.
So we pick small squash on Friday and small cukes, and then we put them into containers and sell them in quarts at market on Sunday.
Okay, I should have been
Friday smalls.
Awesome.
What are you doing with zucchini?
Yeah,
Be a trouble.
It's called Friday. And so like we get to the field and I like remind everybody, it's like, okay, Friday smalls, and then
That's
like
awesome.
same with tomatoes. It's like, okay, half ripes, we're doing half ripes. So then like I'm doing chores like, tractor work and greenhouse chores and irrigation and whatever, all the things. But yeah, I'm definitely not harvesting zucchini by myself.
Thank you. If
If that was your main question.
Because Saturday zucchini.
Yeah.
Somehow it's that picking squash by yourself that's the biggest heart crusher.
Yeah.
We're talking like this, like finger size,
Yeah.
But my fingers are bigger than everybody, so.
If the zucchini gets too big, you have to blame yourself.
It's
Yeah. I don't really care that much. I'm the worst picker out of all of them. They're like, oh, Lisa did this bed.
That's great. All right. Other questions? Yeah, Lisa.
I have a question.
Yep, go for it.
I was wondering if anyone could comment on neurodivergency in the workplace. We kind of talked about education and the role of all of the many jobs that we have to be as farmers, also being an educator, and kind of how you adjust for your own learning and communication styles related to neurodivergency or those on your crew. And Jake had a cool example of like the whiteboard completely changing because of the way people were thinking. But that workplace also sounds very unique. And so other examples like Lisa's game day sheet, like I love that example, but then maybe if that particular way of giving information didn't work for some of your crew, but you rely on that, how how have people been able to adjust, or do you just wait for it to filter out and the people stay who like the way your brain works?
Mm,
Good question.
boy, it's probably some of each. And I mean, Taylor did a great job of telling us how carefully they're sort of pre-selecting people who will thrive in their environment, right? And that means you have a lot of applicants to choose from. Some people are like, I'll hire anyone who says they'll come. I'm not being very helpful, but I'm going to throw out one other idea about the list. Maybe this is helpful or not helpful. The farm that I worked on was 2 locations, and in total, like 30 people working, and lots of things going all different directions, different places, different times, different crews, 7 markets a week. And so my partner Hannah, where she ended up is managing the list and where everybody should go by a blog post. So she has a blog, and everyone's supposed to check into the blog the night before or the very early when you first wake up to make sure you know where it is you're supposed to report for the day, what tools you might wish or clothes you might wish you had. And then you also get that idea, like Jake was saying, of what everybody else is doing on the farm. So you get that feeling of like, wow, in total, these 2 farms are going to be doing all of this list today. And that's a modern phone-based kind of a little bit of a newfangled way to communicate with people that maybe young people's might like. I'm just thinking young people. I don't know about neurodiversity. I've never heard that word before.
I've trained as a teacher my whole life, in a lot of experience, like with the multiple intelligences and different kinds of universal design. And I mean, I think it's an amazing question. And I think that it does these one-on-one interviews, asking people, how they, what things they're most afraid of, where they work best, and sort of getting a feel for the layout of the neurodiversity in your crew, and just sit with it for a while and start to work with them. And yeah, you're going to have, I think, clear systems. The universal design thing, which is solid. It's more rock solid. It's got it all. It's like got the different ways that could be different people learn, but it also takes a lot of time. And I think you can be more nuanced and skilled of sort of getting to know your crew and how they learn and like to learn, and what pushes them or what motivates them.
I did an interview of a farmer out in Oregon, Laura Masterson, 47th Avenue Farm. She's amazing. And she employs the use of personality tests as a group project. They all take the test and then they talk about it with each other about, oh, well, I'm the kind of person who wants to be communicated with like this, and I'm a person who values this. And so it becomes a sort of a team building exercise at the same time as highlighting differences. Mm-hmm. And she's found that to be a really kind of fun and useful tool that's, I think, is handling things a little bit in the direction you ask.
Lisa, feel free to follow up more. I might have some other things, or we could offer resources yeah.
I was just wondering, so was are you just wondering how to communicate with day-to-day tasks, Lisa? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think day-to-day tasks is part of it. I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for to respond again. Yeah, it's it has to do with with everything, when it's like the ways that you're receiving information or communicating information. It comes up a lot for me. I'm a neurodiverse person, and so there's not really a part of work that it doesn't affect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lisa, we have everybody who starts fill out like a really open-ended simple form that we call a 3x3, And it's basically asking like, what do you need to be successful? What do you expect from your supervisor? And sort of like a more further looking, like, what do you want to get out of this? And then the supervisor fills out the same thing, like, what do I need from a supervisee in order to have a good relationship? Like, what are my expectations and what do I want out of this relationship? And that's brought, like, just that open-endedness has brought up a lot of stuff. In my experience, especially around people who have had fairly abusive employment relationships, where they'll be like, I had, my last boss would just scream at me whenever I did something wrong. And so like, if it gets at all hostile when I'm getting feedback, like I'm going to shut down. And, just, yeah, that open-ended, like, what do you need from a supervisor question, I think has been a gold mine in terms of figuring out how to work with people who are different than myself.
That's great. Folks, I'm looking at the time and I think I'm going to have to, we could definitely go on. And Lisa, I want to encourage you to follow up with me if you want. I have had some training and think a lot about this stuff, and I'd be happy to maybe point you in the right direction or offer some guidance if I can't offer direct stuff. So it sounds like Jake's got stuff too. So I'd love to connect on whatever is more specific that could be helpful. And any other last minute things, and probably not any involved questions, but yeah, Lisa McDougall.
Just that I talked to NOFA, this was like back in the spring, and they were checking in like with farmers or whatever. And I mentioned that they should do, a number of years ago, I think it was 2012, they did a 3 or 4 series day long workshops on labor. And I suggested that they do that again. They had like one in December, one in January, one in February, one in March. One of the full days was with Chris Blanchard, which was like gold back, it was fantastic. So I suggested back this spring that they do it again. So if anybody else wants to plug an ear into NOFA Vermont or whatever, that they should do another labor workshop series, because they were really, really good.
That's great. Let's do it. This is a super important, like probably one of the most important topics, and it's the most underserved, I think, in our service community, because it's there isn't a lot of hard, tangible stuff. So I appreciate your patience with this, really a lot of rich information, and encourage you all to follow up and make some sort of an easy plan, some easy wins for next season, and just set yourself up to succeed with that is the main goal. And we'll be there to help support you as we can. Okay. Thank you all. And we've gone over time.
Thanks,
Ellen, for that great presentation, and all of our panelists, Lisa,
Good to
Jake,
see
and
you.
Taylor.
That was super.
Good night, everyone. Take care.